Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name is Lefebvre, and today we are testing out something I hadn't even heard about until last week. We are going to test out Daniel Smith's watercolor ground. So I was able to purchase this small essential watercolor mixing kit off Amazon. It comes with a small bottle of watercolor ground. I don't know if you can see that. It's about 30 ml, and then it also comes with 6 Daniel Smith extra fine watercolor tubes, which I've never owned any of his paints before. Some people have sent me little testers and little dot cards and stuff of them before, so it's kind of cool actually owning some of his paints. And because I like to use watercolors dry and not straight out of the tube, I did squeeze all of the tubes into little pans. So more importantly, we want to know, what the heck is watercolor ground? So like I said, I had never heard of it before. I wasn't aware of it until I did my watercolor canvas video when a bunch of people in the comments were saying, you should try watercolor ground. And I'm like, what is that? So essentially, this is kind of like a paint that you can paint onto any surface and make that surface suitable for watercolor, which sounds totally weird to me and kind of like, how would that happen? So I'm just going to read to you what it says on the back. An excellent ground for watercolor on all surfaces. So absorbent surfaces that you can put this on: canvas, paper, plaster, or hardboard. Non-absorbent surfaces are glass, plastic, metal, and for best results, they will need to be abraded before application of the ground. Thick, brushable, and heavy pigmented, allow 24 to 72 hours to cure before applying watercolors or acrylics. Can be thinned up to 10% with water. Wash brushes immediately after use. So basically you can paint this on anything and then use watercolors on top. And I thought that was like the most interesting thing ever, because I only ever thought that you could just paint on watercolor paper and that was it, but this is game changing. So today we are testing it out on some wood pieces I have. So these were from my friend's wedding a few years ago. So they have a varnish. So what I need to do is I need to sand the thing down first. Just lightly. I don't think it has to be crazy. I didn't want to do it on the back because it's just way too textured. But I'm gonna sand it down. We're gonna paint a layer of this on there. I have a couple of these, so I'm gonna do 2. And then I also have these tree cookies that I've used for Christmas tree decorations. So I'm gonna paint a couple of these too, just for fun. But today we're just starting with wood. So let's jump right into the video, put some of this ground on some of those wood pieces, wait 24 hours for it to dry, and then get painting. Okay, so the first thing I did was sand down the wood piece. I think if you have like a raw wood piece, you don't have to do too much sanding. I just wanted to get the varnish off so the ground would stick. But if you want a smoother surface, you could sand it a bit as well. And I just threw the ground right on the wood piece and slapped it on there. I wasn't sure exactly how thick of a layer I should do, so I ended up doing 2 layers because in my mind, maybe the thicker it was, the more absorbent it would be, like a paper, like you want like a nice thick layer. So I did 2 layers and I just tried to get it as least streaky as I could. I think that was the trickiest part, was trying to get the brush strokes all to go one way and make it not as streaky. I've heard people use like a paint roller, but it wouldn't have worked on this, or like a sponge or something to get kind of like the same texture all over, but it's up to you. The brush strokes look fine. And then I actually did it on a few more tree cookies you don't see me paint on, but I just wanted to try, different layers and stuff like that. And I think it worked pretty well. So here's a close-up of the texture, and it actually kind of resembles like a plaster. So it was really, really cool to do. And even though there's like a little bit of texture and brush strokes, I didn't mind it, and we're gonna see how it turns out. Okay, so it's been 24 hours since I put on the watercolor ground onto our wood pieces, so they are ready to be painted on. I'm going to start with a couple smaller ones just to test it out first. I have put my paints into little pans. They're not fully dry yet, so I'm not going to use these. I did squeeze some onto my palette and just play around yesterday. So these are now dry, and these are the ones we're going to use. And the colors, quickly, I just wanted to tell you what this set comes with. We're not really reviewing the paints, but we're kind of using them for the first time as well, but it's more about the watercolor ground. So the colors that come with the set are New Gamboge, I don't know how to say it, Quinacridone Rose, Hansa Yellow Light, Pyrrole Scarlet, Phthalo Blue, and French Marine. So those are great paints to start with. This is a great mixing kit because you essentially can make any color with these 6. So We're going to be using these paints that I have in my palette here. The other colors that I have, these are COTMAN paints from Winsor & Newton, but we're going to stick to these ones. But yeah, let's start just testing out with these because this is really what we're here for. All right, so I feel like the first thing I should try are watercolor florals because that is my jam. And we'll see how it works. I am using my Princeton snap brush. We're going back to my brush roots for this. I don't know why, just it felt like it. So let's begin. And I will talk through my thoughts as we do this. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with like a little rose here. Okay, so the color's coming out nice and bright. I mean, it works. I don't know. Let's see if we can lighten it up in color. The real test here for me are like color bleeds and like the blending that you can do. So here it's a little darker. Let's drop in some darker color to see if we can get those color bleeds. Ooh. Cool. You can. It bleeds just like it does on cold pressed paper. That's so weird. Okay, let's try another. Let's get a bit more like an orangey flower. Whoa. It blends like right in. That is so odd. I mean, so did the canvas too, the watercolor canvas. I wonder if the watercolor canvas was made with watercolor ground. If that's what it was primed with. I don't actually know, but cool. I mean, it looks pretty legit here. And like wet on wet works perfectly on it. What? That is so cool. This is awesome. I can tell it's like you can see the color there, although it is bleeding out, not bleeding out, but like blending out a bit more. It's not really, I don't know. Let's see if I can just make it a bit darker in the center to really get, I mean, it's staying fairly wet. Whoa, look at that bleed. Whoa. Yeah, it's staying wet. Oh, but it's gonna, looks like it's starting to dry. It's interesting. It is similar to watercolor paper. Not identical, obviously, but it's very similar, which is shocking. It does look like it comes like, it dries a bit lighter, which is also interesting. I'll have to see what color it really dries to after. Let's do a little peach flower here. Yeah, the wet on wet is kind of cool. It really does like a lot of bleeding from one color to the next. Try and make this yellow a bit more vibrant. Let's see if it keeps that vibrancy of that yellow. Gonna grab some green. Here, grab. But like the color bleeds, I think, are what are the most like intriguing and amazing about this, because it bleeds very similarly to how it does on paper, which is quite impressive. Because you can use cheaper cold pressed paper and not get this kind of bleed, which is interesting. But I mean, it works. I think it just loses its vibrancy a little bit. Maybe I'll even try and do a little bit more detail later, see if I can up that vibrancy. Let's make it even lighter. This is also a very tiny surface area, so we'll have to see what more we can do on the bigger slabs of wood. But that's pretty cool. Yeah, that peach dried really, really light. So I also wonder if I can dry it with my heat tool. So this is my heat tool. I use it in a lot of videos. Let me just dry it and see if I can paint over. Okay, it's completely dry. Yeah, it does lose its vibrancy a little bit, like the color, but let's see what it looks like if we go over and just add a little bit of detail. Some little lines here. Get a bit more pink. So now we're doing some wet on dry. That construction's still going on, if you can hear it in the background. Get a little bit of yellow. Just sharpen it up a bit. But honestly, that looks really cool. That's pretty awesome. And this is amazing for like little Christmas ornaments. Amazing. Or gift tags for a card. You could do a little watercolor piece on the front and then write their name on the back for a birthday, whatever, Mother's Day, anything. Very cute. Okay, here, let's try and do like a sky. I'm gonna add a bit more water. Let's do like a sunset. I'm gonna start with like a pink. Let's cover this whole thing. I wanna try and make it vibrant. So I'm gonna start off, let's try and do a gradient. I'm gonna try and blend it down. Like it blends so well so far. Do yellow down here. Like think about the cool gift tags you could make with these. I think I got these tree cookies off Amazon like a few years ago. I'll see if I can find them again and link them. But you can find them at craft stores as well, depending on where you are. I think Michael's has had them in the past, but they can get a little bit pricey for a piece of wood. Like, look at that gradient. That's cool. Look at that. Maybe put a little bit of blue or purpley at the top. Maybe some clouds or something coming in. Just want to see this like wet on wet of how that's gonna work. I feel like I should bring that pink down a bit more. Yeah, I feel like it dries a lot lighter. So that might be one of the downfalls, is that it loses its vibrancy. I mean, we can always try later to add a bit, you know, another layer to see if it really kind of makes it a bit more vibrant on top. You just might have to do multiple layers, but I'm just trying to I find it's really hard to do it on these tiny little pieces too. Get a little bit more pink in there. Yeah, it's losing the pink. Okay, let's dry it and see. It definitely loses its vibrancy. I mean, let's try another layer just to see. Okay, so I'm just gonna wet it up first. I'm gonna start with the yellow at the bottom. Really gonna try and layer on that color. I mean, I'm doing yellow over purple, so that's probably not gonna be great. I could have done the clouds after, for sure. Didn't plan it out, but I also didn't expect it to lose so much of its vibrancy, so. More of that blue up there. Okay, let's wait for that to dry and then maybe, or no, because I want to do the clouds. Okay, this is the second layer, so hopefully that will just help. Okay, let's get our purple clouds in there. Try a different blue. Just trying to do a nice little, it's weird, it's like getting lost in the sky here. Okay. Just trying to make it a bit darker. Okay. let's wait for that to dry and then we can do a little bit more detail on top. Okay, so there we go. It's a bit more vibrant. I want to do like a black. Let's see if I can grab. So far the watercolors are great. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with them. I think they look great. They work well. I might just not be able to tell the complete difference between all like different watercolors, but I'm gonna do like a rocky beach here. And I don't have black, so I'm just kind of mixing all the colors together. I'm gonna do like a palm tree. Like that. Definitely might have to go over it with a different, like an actual black. And there we go. I mean, it worked. That's so crazy. Cool. Okay, so now that we've kind of tested it, got it out of the way, we are going to try this now. Now there's some sort of mark on here. Don't know what that's about. Oh, well. Okay, so now we're going to try the big one. Okay, so for this, I'm thinking, I don't know why there's like splatters of color on it. Of course, because that's what happens. I was thinking of doing kind of like a mountainy sky. But just because I want to work with the colors I want to work with, I'm actually going to use my regular palette for this, just so I feel a bit more comfortable. I think in the future I will review the Daniel Smith watercolors like fully, but for now I just want to paint with my watercolors that I know and love. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to wet up the background, and we're going to try and do like a gradient, like sky. So like a grayish blue sky. See if we can wet a decent amount of area. So I've only worked on the small tree cookies now, so I really don't know how this is gonna work or it's gonna look, but we're gonna figure it out. So I want to start off with some like misty trees in the background. So I'm going to do some wet on wet with some, do we do green? I'm going to use this Perline green. And I'm just going to try and make some trees in the background, doing some wet on wet. And so far I'm like really impressed with this wet on wet effect on this watercolor ground. I was not expecting this to work because like I said, I've tried, when you try wet on wet on like really cheap watercolor paper, it's really disappointing at times, and it's just so weird that it works on something like this. So I'm just doing faded trees. I'm gonna wash off my brush a bit, and I'm just gonna bring it down, let it fade a bit. I want them to be like misty trees, like that. Okay, keep adding water. Actually, I'm gonna use my bigger brush to blend it down. Wash and dry off just to blend it, blend it, blend it. All right. And then I'm going to do another set on this side of some faded trees. And I'm just using some Perline green. Use a bit more pigment this time to make this a little bit darker. Just a little. Because the closer we get to the foreground, the darker I want it to be. And I really wanted to do some kind of like foresty landscape on here just because of the wood. I think it looks really cool. Or I was hoping it would look cool. We'll see how it actually turns out. Okay, so I'm just doing some vertical lines. The background stays wet pretty decently, which is really nice. and really cool because I didn't know if it would dry fast or what, but so far so good. Okay, and then I'm just going to take my wet clean brush and just kind of blend it out, blend it down, a little bit of color. I actually really like the colors on this. This is cool. I feel like it could be a bit darker. Don't leave your brushes in the water like I just did. I'm gonna do a little bit of zigzaggy lines. I also want to bring this down a bit more, blend it out further because we're going to go down further. Just a little bit. But I want it to look like misty trees. Okay. Then we're going to do another row. I'm going to make it a bit darker this time. So use more pigment. I'm also going to add a little bit of black to it because I want it to be even darker. And these ones are going to be a bit bigger, like just a bit bigger. Still faded though. Blending it down a bit. Like a bit more black. And again, I have to remember that it does fade a lot lighter than the color you intended, so maybe even make it darker. I'm really digging this green though with this wood trim. Looks so earthy. I love it. Grabbing more. And then I will do some detailed ones in the front. So we'll do some wet on dry. Just trying to do. Okay. Just want to bring it down just a little bit more. Okay. Yeah, I want to bring this all the way down. Okay, and then we're going to wait for this to dry, and we will do some other ones in the foreground. Okay, so now that it's dry, I'm going to do some wet on dry with some bigger trees down here. So let's make sure our colors are nice and wet. Again, I didn't intend to necessarily go for a monochrome look, but that's what we're doing. Okay, so let's see what it looks like wet on dry. So I'm going to do some big trees, and we're just going to kind of zigzag back and forth unevenly. You don't want it to be too symmetrical because then it doesn't look as natural. Okay. This is a mix of like more black with the pearly and green, so it still has that pearly and green tint to it underneath. And this is just going to be the tedious part. Honestly, I love landscapes. They're beautiful, but I find I don't have much patience to do stuff like this, like a billion trees, but I'm going to do it, and I'm going to speed it up for you because I find this really boring to watch, and I feel like you might too. So we're just going to do this in fast motion, and then we'll see what it looks like. So I'm just going to try and do some that are close together, and we're going to kind of go around like this. Let's do it. take a little bit of black and maybe add some birds. I wonder if I should add them up here. I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna add a couple birds like this. But if they were up back there, I feel like they would be a lot lighter in pigment, like kind of in the misty distance, right? Like that. And there we go. Okay, I think this turned out actually really cool. It honestly works just like watercolor paper and decent watercolor paper, which I did not expect. I think these little ones, I'm just not used to working on little pieces, and I was kind of just anxious to get to this bigger piece. But the florals turned out really cute, and these are like great for, you know, decorations or gift tags like I was talking about. But I think I'm gonna put this piece above my bed. Favorite color is green, so I just stuck with the monochrome, but I absolutely love this. This is crazy. So yeah. Okay, so the final verdict for this Daniel Smith watercolor ground is that I think it is pretty freaking incredible and kind of blew any expectation I had out of the water. This stuff is awesome. And I thank you guys for the ones who kind of brought it to my attention that it existed. Originally thinking about it, I was just like, how would that work? How would this mimic a cold press like cotton watercolor paper? There's no way, but it does. It really does. And I think it performs way better than some of the cheaper watercolor paper like Canson. Just the stuff that you begin with, this is way better. It really does mimic like a decent quality watercolor paper. The blends you can get with this stuff and the color bleeds are pretty wonderful. So I'm very, very impressed, and I do highly recommend it because like I said, it opens up a lot of doors for what you can paint on. So, you know, Christmas gifts, tags, wood, glass. Like I haven't tried glass or anything yet, but so far it's pretty amazing. And I just like to clarify, remember, it does not come with these pans. It comes with the tubes. I just squeezed all the tube paint into these little pans that I had. It does come with this little case that the tubes came in, but I was able to get one tube into two full pans. So it does not come like this, it comes in tubes, but this is just how I like to use them. So that's why I did that. So just a little disclaimer. But for this set, I think it's incredible quality. You're getting high quality Daniel Smith watercolor paints, which have an amazing reputation, and I've had them recommended to me so many times. And then if you want to test this out, it's great. So I'm going to put the link for this in the description. I believe it was like $40 Canadian. So it's going to vary depending on where you are, but it's so worth it. And I'm so happy. And I think that's about it. So if you guys have any more questions about this kind of stuff, you can let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram for even more. Have a great day, guys. Bye.